Recently, at a talk in Atlanta, Sister Helen Prejean recounted her life as a nun and a social justice advocate. Here's a portion of the program.
It's grace that wakes us up. And first, the struggle when the civil rights movement happened. Martin Luther King was marching. We could begin to see what had been happening with people of color. We were always in a white community, but our sisters took desegregation very seriously at the Academy in New Orleans. We welcomed young black women, and there was white flight out of our school. It got to be known as the N School because the other Catholic schools in New Orleans only had a few token black people. So white parents would take their students out of the academy where there were a whole number of black people, which is truly what society is. So you don't go with just your little bubble of friends just like you to learn how to live. And our school went down. Finally, there was so much white flight out, we couldn't sustain, but we went down holding up that flag. We went down, it was one of the proudest things, and so I tell the story of that. And so I'm waking up with the community as well. But then the waking up to social justice was another struggle because I always thought you prayed to God to solve the real big problems, you know? I mean, what's one person gonna do? I mean, you got people starving in the world, you got economic inequality, you got racists. What's one person gonna do? So I prayed. And then the wake-up call came through big debate that went on in the community around the time of how are we called to live not just charity but social justice. And so then, and I struggled because I said, we are nuns, we're not social workers. How are we gonna go out there and solve all those problems? Resistance. Later when you wake up, you can understand what was behind your resistance, but at the time you really don't know. But I did wake up. And that led me to move into the St. Thomas housing projects. And all these are stories that unfold in the book, River Fire. And St. Thomas housing projects is where I got an invitation one day. When I'm talking to college students, I tell them, look, Jesus is sneaky. My little invitation was to write a man on death row. I didn't know they were going to execute him. We hadn't had an execution in 20 years. There'd been a moratorium on the death penalty in the 60s, the 70s. Here it was, 1980s. I'm writing a man. I just thought I was going to be writing letters. I was an English major. I was going to write some nice letters. And he wrote back. And 2.5 years later, he's executed. And that man, Millard Farmer, sitting in here, was the lawyer I called in Atlanta. I heard this man took these cases and tried to save the life of people on death row, and that's how Millard Farmer came into my life, and that's when I began to learn about human rights and about dedicated lives in the lawyers that were working so hard to try to save those lives.
To watch the rest of this discussion, visit our website, booktv.org. Search for Helen Prejean or the title of her book, River of Fire, using the box at the top of the page.